Welcome to Power of the Tribe podcast. I'm your host, John Connors. I'm also the founder and head instructor of Connors Martial Arts in Norwood. We teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai kickboxing, and mixed martial arts. Just reach out to us or come on down, and we'll make your life better. How's that sound? We'll make you a better person. This is what I was stumbling on last time. We will give you self-knowledge. You'll learn about yourself, and you'll learn about others.
Right. And how many people ever feel bad that they tried it out? 99%, 95%?
I think everybody likes it.
Yeah.
And I'm here, of course. You're listening to my host, Dan Robin. How you doing, Dan?
I'm good. I feel good today. I'm ready.
Feel good?
I'm ready to bring my B game.
Nice.
I'd say about maybe not my A game, but I'm good for a B game.
Now, do you ever ask me how I'm doing? I'm just curious.
Neither on the podcast nor in real life.
Humor me.
How are you doing, John?
I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm at a 6.4 today.
That's pretty good.
It's good. It's better than average,
really
I
good.
guess,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
Yeah. You can get down to the 10th, though?
You know why I came up with that number?
Why?
I got this new gadget. I love all these kind of health gadgets, and I'm wearing it here. The Oura Ring. Have you heard of this thing?
I have not.
O-U-R-A. So I'm becoming a cyborg. I'm just embracing.
O-U-R-A. Not
O-U-R.
A-U-R. It's not an aura.
It's not an aura ring. It's an Oura ring.
Okay.
It's not a mood ring. It
Right.
doesn't change colors when I get pissed off or something.
All right.
And one of the things it does is measures your sleep. So you wear the thing. You know, we're all going to have implants soon anyways. We're going to have our phones implanted in our brains or something. So I don't know why. I just thought this was interesting. And
What's it do? It feeds to a computer? Or
yeah, it has an app on your phone, and you wear it 24 hours a day. First, they send you out a kit to size it.
Yeah.
So you got to find out what size you are. Turns out I can barely use the largest size, which makes no sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not that big of a person. I think I have the swollen jiu-jitsu knuckles.
Maybe that's
but
it. Because there's got to be huge people out there, right? That
apparently they're not using the Oura Ring, Dan. Because this is size 13. And did that happen to you when you started your jiu-jitsu? Your fingers got bigger?
I didn't notice.
You didn't notice?
I don't notice anything.
I noticed it on so I started in 1999. My wedding band, I couldn't wear it anymore. Then I could barely get it on my pinky.
The only finger, like I know if you go on long hikes, maybe everyone knows this, like you can't wear a ring. Like your fingers swell.
From swinging your arms?
I don't even know what from. I don't know.
I did
just
not
know
know
if you,
that.
If you like if you go hiking through climb a mountain, like your fingers
Is it
will
an altitude
swell.
thing?
I don't think so. I think it's some kind of blood flow thing.
When I went to Edmonton, I told you I swelled up completely. I think I gained 10 pounds. And then I fasted for 24 hours when I was there. At any rate, this thing is supposed to keep track of, and it tells you how many steps you're supposed to take, all that good stuff.
So it's like the Fitbit, but now it's a ring.
It's like a Fitbit. Yeah. But yeah. So it told me that
It looks a little like a wedding ring, though.
it is. It does, right? So I put it on my right hand. I didn't want
You
any
don't wanna
women
mislead
that are
anyone.
interested in me to be deterred, you know?
As they're walking away, you're yelling, "It's Oura Ring."
It's Oura. O-U-R-A. Yeah. I cannot have any deterrents. I can't set up any obstacles. I got to keep everything going. At any rate, it said that, and then it tells you your readiness for the day. So I woke up this morning, and it said that I'm at 64% readiness.
Oh, so you know exactly.
I know exactly.
How
That's
you
why I picked 6.4. I think I can open this up. Yeah. It said, not all nights are perfect. You didn't get a full night's sleep last night, so your readiness is on the low side.
They were like, "Screw you, Oura Ring. I feel good."
So Oura does not have the Dan Robin philosophy of metrics,
Yeah,
where
put
you
6.4.
consider 64 would be good. They're saying that's not good.
Do you ever wake up and it's like 22?
This is the first time I've used it. So
Oh,
it says
I see.
it says I slept for 5 hours and 10 minutes.
Oh, so we'll see. I'd like to see by next episode if you
Yeah.
like. If you, I feel you might come in with no Oura Ring, like.
But next week.
Gave up on the. Like,
Well, I also do another wacky thing called I measure my HRV. Are you familiar with that?
I didn't realize you were HRV
positive. That's nothing to joke about.
I'm not sure. I know
How dare you? No, HRV is heart rate variability.
No, okay.
So you're not familiar with it? I'll explain it.
Right.
So it's apparently a measure of the stress on your overall physical system. So the more variable your heart rate is, the more rested your heart is, and the more rested your system is.
And you have less variability for...
If you have less variability, it means your heart and your system is overstressed in general.
Why would that be?
I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because if you think about it like a boxer shadow boxing, and he's feeling really good and peppy. He's on his toes. He's like, bap, 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 bap. That's how your heart's feeling good. It can beat any way it wants. When your heart is tired, it's just like bump, bump.
I'm barely
bump.
Able to beat.
It's like, for the love of God, when is this going to end? Why do I have to keep doing this? Yeah. So, so in general, the higher your HRV, and it's a number, I think on a scale of 0 to 100, it might go over 100, but I've never gone over 100 for me. And you track it, and everybody's different. So I have a heart monitor that I put on, just like you would for running or
So over what period of time?
So they measure it for 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So I just put on my heart monitor, I lie down, I click on the app, and for 2 minutes and 30 seconds, it measures my heart rate and my HRV. And then it gives me an assessment. So it collects data on you. So I've been doing it for many months. So it has all this data. So it knows kind of like what your average is. So your average HRV might be different than mine. Your average heart rate might be different. And based on that, it can tell whether you seem to be overstressed or understressed. And then it gives you a number from 1 to 10. And it'll tell you, if you land in the 7 to 10 range, it says you're good to go. You're good to work out hard today. So they kind of have the Dan Robin
Right. They're
philosophy.
saying 7 is good.
They're saying 7 is good. And then if you're in the 4 to 6 range, they say, maybe just some light exercise or stretching. Today, guess where I was today?
7.
3.
3?
Yeah. So I think the 64% of the Oura corresponds to about a 3.
And do you think the 3 is accurate?
I think it is. Yeah. And I think it's because of the sleep. I just didn't sleep that well.
This is what I was thinking, that I'd like to see it tested, like go out, like, some morning where you're miserable, like hungover or just and just those measures better be low. Like if you had like a miserable
I'm
night.
almost certain they would be. Yeah, I guarantee.
And then you wake up and you're like 8, and then you're like, all right. Then you throw them in the garbage.
That would never happen. Yeah.
So you think they're accurate?
I think it's pretty accurate, and I think it is. It's related to how hard you're working out if you are overtraining, but it's also, I think, more acutely affected by your sleep, your hydration. Yeah, and if you did have one too many drinks the night before, it's gonna show up when you wake up the next day. So maybe you don't want to do this, Dan. Maybe you want to stay away from
no, I'm good. I just would like to see it tested, because there's a little bit of the whiff, like it's an Oura Ring, like it's a little whiff of like maybe this is nonsense.
Yeah, I'll
maybe
give you my
work,
anecdotal evidence, my
Yeah.
N of 1, tell you what I think. But with the HRV, I feel, based on my experience using it, that it's not always spot on, but it seems to be close. And then I find that my heart rate variability, it can change a lot from 1 hour to the next. It's a little bit like the blood pressure stuff. Remember, your blood pressure on your left arm is fine, but your right arm was a mess.
Right.
So they're taking a snapshot, 2.5 seconds of your day, trying to figure out where you're at. So it's probably, it's not going to be perfect.
Yeah, but I'd still like to. I mean, the other thing is, I could see being depressed if you're like, I'm always at a 2. Like
It's funny, Dan used to say that. I was feeling like pretty happy this morning, and then when that stupid thing said it criticized my sleep, it was like, yeah, maybe do better next time. You're 64%. I felt a little down from that. I did.
So maybe it's chicken and egg. You read the rating, and then that's how you feel.
Well, I will tell you this other thing. The HRV, when I get like a 3 like that, I completely disregard it. I just go work out all the time anyways.
Well, you're going to work out anyway, right?
Yeah, so. Which is funny, because this has happened to me. I've gotten a 3. I woke up and I felt a little crap. And actually, I could feel my heart rate feels like it is maybe sometimes when your heart rate gets a little elevated, your HRV can come down, and because it's just not enough, the amplitude of the wave is shorter, so there's even less variability, and I'll get a low score like a 3, then I'll say screw it, and I'll go train relatively hard jiu-jitsu anyways, and then I'll wake up the next day and it'll be 10. Which doesn't make sense, right? You figure if you're already in the hole and you go work out hard, you should be even worse the next day. But it doesn't always work that way.
Yeah, maybe not. Who knows?
But that's the craziness that I've been up to. I'm sort of trying to embrace AI, and what do they call that when you sort of integrate the technological with the biological? There's some sort of name for that, I think. Some people think we're going in that direction.
You're trying to be full on Android or cyborg or something.
Yeah.
Right? You're trying to soon you don't want to have to look at your phone to get the results. Just like blink or something, and the
I do
readouts
like
in
looking
the
at
corner of your
numbers.
eyes.
Don't you like that?
Yeah, but you could be reading them out of the corner of your
right.
Visual display built
Right.
into your retina.
But I think with this Oura Ring, I think I'll probably be motivated to try to sleep better. You know what I mean?
To get the score, yeah.
Yeah.
I know. See what you mean.
think it'll probably. I think I'm easily affected by scores like that.
It's human nature, right? Like you want to improve your score, you want a good readout, and I've
think
never
for the
even
most part it
thought.
is.
I would guess most people never even thought of having some kind of objective score of your sleep that you could look at and try.
What
to
I'm
improve.
wondering about is I usually take an afternoon nap, and I'm wondering how that's going to play into my score. If they're going to count that or what?
So you've had this on for one day.
One day.
All right. So
Actually,
I'm,
less than a
I'm,
day.
I'm
I
curious
put it
to
on
see
last night.
by next week.
Yeah, I hate
how
it
you feel
already.
about
It's
it.
uncomfortable. I can't go for a hike probably now. Can't go bushwhacking, right?
Yeah, probably. Well, yeah. No, you'd have to take it off.
Yeah,
But you roll with it on too.
I didn't roll today. I didn't have time.
But isn't it only for sleep? Like, why do you have to wear it during the day?
It's also measuring, which I really don't care, how many calories you're burning, how many steps you're taking. I really don't care.
You
So
can
I'll
tell
probably
that
take
from
it
a
off.
ring on your finger.
I don't know, Dan.
I guess
I have
we'll
no
see.
idea. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure it's only has a certain amount of accuracy, right?
Yeah. Well, any of these do. Like, I had my phone for runs, and sometimes it's wildly off.
What is it measuring?
Like just distance.
And it's off.
Yeah, it's wrong.
I would never have thought that.
Well, it's been a little off. You know, there's
It's
some.
got a GPS and it's still off.
Yeah, but not too bad for runs. But
You
I
run
mean,
pretty fast.
But take it. No, I don't. Take it on a treadmill though, and then it's all screwy. Like it doesn't know what you're doing. I don't even know how it measures it at all on a treadmill. It seems to know I ran, but it doesn't. It's off. Like.
You think it's a swing of your arm?
Yeah, maybe if I start swinging my arms, it'll
And it
think I
makes
went
some
farther.
Calculation of your stride? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, how could it even know you're doing anything?
I don't know. But maybe I'll sleep better. I'll let you know. I think you're right. I think this thing is going to be collecting dust in my bedroom drawer someplace, right? Because I don't like jewelry at all. I don't like anything on me. I don't wear anything.
Yeah.
Once I got rid of that wedding ring, that's it.
That's it. Other than your
jewelry.
piercings. That's it.
You can't see those.
Yeah.
But no, it's interesting. All this numerical feedback, it's kind of the opposite of jiu-jitsu. Like you never get any numerical feedback in jiu-jitsu as to how you're doing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you could never be like you were a 7 today or you were a
6.4.
nothing. Yeah.
Nothing. That's one of the most difficult parts of it, I think.
Yeah, you give your own feedback, and that's why I've talked before about it's not objective. It's completely subjective, right? We've touched on it a little bit.
Completely subjective. It's the definition of subjective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, tournaments, you have wins and losses, or you could be like, I was tapped this number of times today or something, but generally it's 100% subjective. That's why I've said before, I can have the same basic kind of training day, on Tuesday and then on Thursday, and one I'll feel miserable and one I'll feel happy. And there wasn't really even any big difference.
Let me ask you this. Do you think you have a negative bias on your, number one, your performance and on your development, like your progress?
So negative, yes.
Yeah.
Bias, maybe.
Well, it can't be negative or positive unless it's a bias. Otherwise, it would be accurate.
No, but I could.
So it's either negative. It's either
But you could have a negative feeling that's accurate.
Right. But I'm saying, do you think you have a negative bias on your assessment of your progress? You think you're exactly accurate, or do you think you have a positive bias on your progress?
I definitely don't have a positive bias.
You definitely don't have a positive. Well, good that you can admit that. So it's somewhere between accurate and negative bias.
I would say.
Yeah. Do you think that's more common in jiu-jitsu than people having a positive bias?
I don't know, actually. I know that I've been told I'm super negatively biased.
My experience is a lot of students are complaining that they're not getting better, and I know that they are getting better. It's just that their training partners are getting better at varying rates, so it gets confusing.
But I can get around that sometimes. Like in the past, I remember we've had roles where you've been like, I can tell. We've had that conversation where you're like, I can tell you're getting better, and I'll still feel like, well, there's reasons you think I'm getting better, but I still know I'm not.
Actually, the last time I rolled with you, you definitely had improved, for sure.
Yeah, but see, I don't really like. Even when you say that, I'm like,
you think I'm lying?
Well, I'm not lying, but there's other reasons. Like
I'm an idiot.
I can give you other explanations, like I wasn't as tired that day.
Oh,
or like you had rolled and I hadn't. I don't know if this was the case this last time, but
you had a high Oura Ring.
Yeah,
score
like
that morning.
just like it was my second roll of the day because I came in late, or like okay,
you don't think I'm nuanced enough to suss that out,
or my passing was a little better, but like other aspects of my game are not any better. What about that one? I'm pretty good at taking the negative out of the positive, extracting the negative. So I'm sort of.
So I think you are negative bias.
Or what about this? What about like? Yeah, but I had a good roll, but that doesn't, like, my very next roll might not be good. You know what I mean? Like that one roll, I might have done okay, but probably the next roll, it won't be there anymore.
And it's so crazy that makes us feel a little shitty. It's so irrational, right?
Is that irrational? Couldn't that be true?
No, it's irrational that we feel bad about it. I'm not saying you
see.
could have a good roll, then you can have a bad roll, but we really shouldn't care that much. But it can kind of make you feel lousy, right?
Yeah.
I think more people tend to a negative bias than toward a positive bias of their assessment of their own progress in jiu-jitsu.
I think that's true.
You think that's true, right? That's my observation.
So the people listening that do jiu-jitsu, most of them are overly negative toward themselves.
I think so.
I am. I think the other thing is, years and years ago, something like snapped in my brain where everything became negative about, like, do you know what I mean? Like, I think I came in like raring to go. Maybe it's part of jiu-jitsu because it's such a long slog and people pass you. And, well, do you know what I mean? You don't get great in a year.
Beaten down.
You know what I mean? Like, and so. Dan,
this podcast, part of the purpose of this was to promote the academy, and I think we routinely do the opposite.
This is all end result positive, which is that people are being overly hard on themselves.
They are, so they should stop it.
Yeah,
stop doing that. Yeah.
I think it's good for people to know too, because even a perfect example. Just now, you asked me, like, you're like, do you think other people are negative? And I was like, my first thought was like, I haven't really thought about other people. And their biases.
I think striking might be the opposite, because I've had this experience so many times where two guys will be sparring MMA, doing mostly striking, or maybe just kickboxing, and one of them will come up to me on the side and they go, "Did you see that? I was tearing that guy apart, landing my body punches." And I go, "Oh yeah, great." And then he'll walk away, and then the other guy will come up and go, "Did you see that? I was in total control." And they're both describing the same round completely differently. Like they both experienced two different things.
That's funny.
That's happened to me on many occasions. Yeah.
That's weird with sparring too. Because we've talked about sparring where you can definitely have, like, if someone is slower and less experienced than you feel like Muhammad Ali. You're like dropping your hands, you're dancing, you're kind of moving in and out. You're just awesome. And then someone's faster and better than you. You're like, what am I even
Right.
doing in here? Like, I can't do anything.
Can't do anything. It's
I say going against fast guys, I felt like I'd start my punch and I'd see him like look at my fist and be like, oh, that punch is coming, and like just move like casually out of the way. And be like, well, how am I going to
3 times?
Yeah, and then hit me 3, and I'd be like, how am I going to hit him? He just sees it, and like it can be depressing. You're like, what am I going to do?
Speed is so important, right?
And then I've had that negative like jiu-jitsu, a common thing too. So here's me being negative, because here's an exact parallel where you could be positive, but I take it as negative. So if there's a roll where someone gets on me and I can't get out, and they're just like attacking me, and I'm stuck down there, I'll be like, man, it was horrible, that roll. Like, he was just on top of me the whole time.
Yes.
If I have a roll where I'm on someone the whole time, but I can't really do anything, I'll be like, I was horrible that roll too. Like, I'll be like, I couldn't, like, you switch sides, and I'll still be like, I couldn't really even do anything. He was just kind of shelled up, and I couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's a way of being on either side of the roll and feeling like, for me, I felt like I did a bad job. Whereas I guess if it was like the mindset you said for the sparring, for the stand-up, it would be like, I felt good because I protected myself on bottom, and I felt good because I controlled them from the top. But I see both as negative instead. I think but again, it's probably more common for rolling, I think, than.
I think it is, and I'm not sure exactly why, but I think it is.
Maybe it's just more aggressive doing stand-up, so more aggressive people are doing it, and they feel more aggressive, and they fired off some punches. I know when you watch professional MMA, everyone always thinks they were doing better than they were. Like, it seems rampant. Like, fighters seem to be.
You ever watch a
shocked
fight and one guy clearly wins, and then they announce the decision, and the loser is shocked
constantly? Right?
Yeah,
I've seen that 100 times.
Huh.
And even people I know, I'll think the one I'm thinking of is not from our gym, so don't think. I'm not naming anyone from Connor's gym, but I saw him fight live, and I thought he clearly lost, and he was like, I met him afterwards, and he was like, I was so robbed, and all his friends were like, you were robbed, and I felt so awkward being
Let
like.
me ask you this, Dan: was it mostly a striking fight? Was there less ground going on?
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of it. I think if you're on the bottom, even if you're not getting pummeled, you get the sense that you're losing.
Yeah.
In MMA. Yeah.
So I think in this fight, I think things happen like someone gets caught up against the fence, but they're protecting themselves. And they're like, this guy's not even hurting me. And you lose track of like, yeah, but everyone else is seeing you up against the fence.
Absorbing a dozen blows somehow.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah,
but anyway, this is all positive for people listening, like that negativity. I think it's good for people to know that there's other people also feel negatively.
Feeling that way.
You know?
I feel negative all the time. Not all the time, but with frequency. Yeah.
I told you that shocked me, and that was recent. I was like, why would you feel negative?
I feel negative all the time. I feel like I should be better. I feel like I'm not improving fast enough. I still deal with anxiety, I think. But I think the wonderful thing about jiu-jitsu is it gives us a chance to put ourselves in positions of discomfort, but we're completely safe. You know what I mean? It's, for the most part, you're completely
mostly safe. Yeah.
But you feel like it's hard, like you're getting your ass kicked, or you could feel like you're going to die if you're in some weird position. You know, if you're going against a Pat Browning type, you might feel like he's going to kill you. But that's good, right? And it's good for us to deliberately and intentionally move to an experience of discomfort in order to get some kind of growth out of that.
Right.
Wouldn't you agree?
I might have told you this, that I rolled with Leo, and I can't remember how we got on the topic, but he said maybe someone told him like, oh, I don't even want to be here today, and was going to leave. And Leo relayed it and said, he said, I all the time don't want to be here. I all the time don't want to do it. He's like, do you think I want to roll with that huge guy and that guy and that guy? That animal is, and he was like, that's what I'm here for, actually. He turned it into a positive, where he was like, I'm here for that. I'm here to roll with people that I don't really want to roll with.
Right.
I'm here to roll with people that make me nervous.
Man, he was rolling with Pedro, and Pedro is so good and so big and powerful. And he was underneath him, and it just looked
Just even
awful.
watching.
Yeah. I was like, that does not look like fun, man. And but I give Leo a lot of credit, to going toward that experience.
The way he puts it,
to
that
get
he's
better.
seeking that out, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the other truth to it, too. Like outside of the gym, like you put yourself in these positions. When I had my son wrestling, and he has to like go up in front of everybody. And like it's sort of stressful. It's kind of unpleasant. So like a lot more unpleasant than sitting and watching playing a video game, right?
Definitely.
But I was like, that's the thing. You go out there. I used to tell him, like, I get it. It's stressful and you're in front of everyone. And then you have to wrestle against someone.
Yeah.
And most people don't even want to get up in front of everyone and just stand there or like have to talk.
Right.
And this is like you have to do the same thing. Yeah. And then you have to get up there and actually wrestle somebody.
Right.
But I think then your body, we talk in here too about like your nervous system, like it adjusts to that. And then other things do not stress you as much, like a teacher yelling at you or someone you work with, a coworker giving you grief. You're like, you're used to these stresses and you're
makes you
you're
stronger.
adaptable. Yeah.
Yeah. You adapt. You get stronger.
Right. And I'd never heard anyone until Leo put it as straightforward, like I'm here for this adversity. I'm here to, he doesn't want to go to the gym and just have friendly rolls with people that he can easily beat.
Yeah.
Because he could do that if he wanted to. He could just pick out people he can beat easily.
Yeah. Yeah. That's always tempting. But that's why he's Leo and why he does so well in business and in jiu-jitsu and everything else. He goes into the fire, definitely. And I think it's the better way to do it, for sure. And I'm trying to do that myself more and more. But it's not easy. I was listening to somebody talking about meditation, and they were saying, well, I get my meditation from running, or my meditation is jiu-jitsu, because I love it. It's so much fun, or riding a bike or whatever it is. And I think you can kind of get in a zone when you're doing something that you like. And it's so great that I focus all my attention on what I'm doing. I'm in the moment. I'm present. That concept that's so popular these days. And I think that's terrific. But there's something else when you're deliberately focusing on something. You know what I mean?
Right. So like jiu-jitsu versus a casual run.
I think so. Or going into discomfort. Or even if you were meditating and you would just stare at a water bottle for 20 minutes, that's way harder. And it's a very different experience than going for a jog in the woods and just getting zoned out. You know what I mean?
Right. Or I thought about that even for running. You can run with almost zero discomfort, and it's still good for you. You zone out, and it's healthy, or you can push it. You know what I mean? You can either just up the speed in general, or you could run up hills, or you could, run intervals, or you could, make it hurt a little bit. And they're two different things, and both are helpful, but there's an added benefit to the discomfort, right? And we come back to that a lot on this podcast, I think, of discomfort.
I think so. And
the gains from it.
I'm thinking about deliberateness as well, because if I keep thinking this concept, Dan, of, we have this human nature, it's our animal nature that makes us want to do things, from an evolutionary psychology viewpoint, all our actions are driven by gene survival. We want to get a good job, or we want to rise in status so we have more mating opportunities so our genes can proliferate and survive. And, I think John Lennon or somebody, one of the Beatles, said something like that's the only reason why they did it is basically to meet women. And other artists have said something to that effect as well, But I'm thinking, isn't it noble if you can do something that isn't driven by gene survival? Because even a lot of the jiu-jitsu, like, I'm getting a black belt, that's kind of you're rising in status. You know what I mean? So it's still riding the wave of that influence by your selfish gene.
Right, but when you get abstract, so what would be something? It's hard to define something as not rising in status, though. If you get too abstract, you could say almost anything.
I think you're right.
Is sort of helping in status.
I think so. Even somebody who's donating a lot of their fortune to charity and it gets out in the media and they make a big
Right.
deal out of it, they're rising in status that way as well.
So what were you thinking of when you're saying it's great to do something that's not to that purpose? Like, do you think just, are you saying like a uncomfortable jujitsu session?
I think, if you deliberately go do something that's uncomfortable, you're strengthening that part of yourself that isn't just pure animal nature. Don't you think?
Right. Because you're saying, you said before on here, you're driven to conserve energy and sit on the couch and
move toward pleasure, away from pain, conserve energy. Yeah. So when you go to do an uncomfortable role, you're spending a lot of energy and you're moving toward pain. So it's counter to animal nature.
I think I've always had that in a sort of a subconscious way when I'm on the mat, when like I always feel a little weird if like there's someone who's kind of a tough role and there's someone next to them like who's brand new. I always feel like a little weird going to the brand new person. Do you know what I mean?
Now,
like
tell
I
me
feel
more.
like,
Why do you think that, Dan? Why would you feel weird? You think you're being weak? You're taking the wimpy way out?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's that straightforward, I think.
Yeah.
I think I feel like I have to, you feel the tug like, boy, I could just easily roll with this person. And you feel like it just feels weird to go call them out when this other person's sitting here.
Right. And then at other times, it isn't quite crystal clear.
Right.
It's more nuanced. And then you can kind of trick yourself into taking the easier road, I suppose, right?
Yeah. Well, then also, for everyone knows this that's been on these open mats where you're like, I already roll with this person, so I want to roll with the new person. So it's not like always seeking out the hardest rolls because
Right. Well, I think if you always train against the hardest people, you're not going to develop as fast either because you can't work your offense if you're getting smashed all the time. Yeah. If I go roll with Pedro for half an hour and he passes my guard and has me underneath him for side control for 30 minutes, I'm not going to learn that much in 30 minutes, So, yeah, it is good to train with people of different levels, but we're talking about something else. We're not talking about jiu-jitsu development. We're talking about, I have this other idea. I think I explained to you about free will, our agency. And, we have all these influences on our behavior, and most of them come down to that sort of gene survival is probably the strongest one. But, we get influences, you have a bad night's sleep, you're a different person. If you're dehydrated, if you're hungry, if you're angry, if you're stressed out, you have probably less and less free will, so to speak, less and less agency. So I think of all the factors as a pie chart that are influencing our behavior, and some small sliver is free will. And I could never prove that. Some people believe there's no such thing as free will, right?
Right.
But I know that if I do certain things, I seem to feel like I have more agency. Then I can do the uncomfortable thing or do the thing that's not driven by gene survival. If I'm well rested, I'm hydrated, you know what I mean? Under certain conditions, that seems to expand. Other conditions, it seems to contract or disappear completely. Become addicted to opioids, that free will sliver might just completely disappear for all effects.
Right. Yeah. So it's all of a piece here. You're saying, get your sleep, get your heart rate in the right place,
Eat healthy. Don't get addicted to opioids.
Get your mind right, and then you're more likely to do other healthy things like challenge yourself, put yourself in a place of discomfort.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that piece, that's the thing that's really us, that sliver of free will. The rest of it is just, who we happen to be, what our genes happen to be, and the animal that we are, right?
Yeah. I'm trying to think. So if you, I don't you think it's pretty common? Most people aren't on the jiu-jitsu mat seeking out the easiest rolls. But then again, there's a social component there too. Like easy is one thing. There's skill level, but it's also like, who do you feel awkward at? Who's familiar? So someone could be very good, but you're like, this is my familiar role.
Oh yeah.
I could feel most comfortable rolling with you, which is the hardest role there, but I'm most comfortable.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. You know from experience that you're going to be safe. You're not going to get injured. Nothing embarrassing is going to happen.
Right.
It's just going to be jiu-jitsu. I think the most.
So we're talking about that's an important distinction, though, right? We don't mean the hardest person there.
For me,
discomfort.
That's a good point,
right?
Dan. So I think probably in general the most uncomfortable role is with somebody who is sort of just below you in the status hierarchy, but they're really, really good. So it's like, oh, now I'm going to go roll, in my case, with this brown belt, and he's going to do better than me. He's going to get over on me, and now I'm going to feel lousy because I'm supposed to be a black belt, right. And I have these goofy rules in my head that I should be better than everybody who's not a black belt, which is not really practical or rational.
Right. And I have that with, I mean, there's a dime a dozen the blue belts who can do better than
a lot
me,
of good blue belts, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's
I think, but that's the hardest role, right? Like you said, going against me, we both understand where we are in the hierarchy. There's not going to be a big shift in the hierarchy when we roll with each other. But like you said, if you went against some young blue belt and it didn't go well for you, you may feel like I just lost some status. I just got knocked down a couple rungs in the hierarchy because of that one roll. And that's going to make your
there's other factors too, though. If they're way bigger than me and 20 years younger, then it almost takes the pressure off again. You're like,
yeah, it's a calculation. Yeah. There's a whole formula that you're computing unconsciously to see how it affects your status.
Right.
Yeah. For me, that's about the whole ball of wax right there. Like, because at this point, you've done enough jiu-jitsu, and I have. We've been in enough pain and discomfort that it's not that big of a deal, right?
Yeah, sure. I don't think no one's
that's
thinking about
not like why you would shrink from rolling with anybody. It's not the physical pain. I think it's that psychic pain, psychological pain, would you call it, of status loss, esteem loss somehow.
And you think, maybe not all the time, but with some regularity, you're saying steer into it.
I think we should try to steer into it all the time. I really do. Because it's not a real loss. I mean, you don't have as much to lose as you think. Like, even if you did lose a little status, it's not going to affect your life in any material way. You know,
it doesn't really matter, right?
It doesn't matter. But our nervous system feels like it matters. It feels like, Dan, if you lose this role, we may lose gene survival. We may not have offspring. If this blue belt taps you, you're not ever mating again, And that's not the rational thought, but that's what's driving your feeling of pain and discomfort, I think. Don't you think?
Yeah. I think my head's been in a pretty good place about that too. But I almost forget that other people might not be there too. Like I could have roles where I maybe tap a blue belt and I don't even remember that that's how the roll went. And it's funny for me to think that maybe they're in a really bad mood. Maybe they're like, I thought I got better than him, and now he beat me, and he tapped me or something. And
he may have a different story he's telling himself.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember. But now that I think about that, it could happen in the reverse way, where I'm really bummed out, and I'm like the role where I got bummed out, the guy who beat me, he doesn't even remember that happened.
Right.
He's not paying any attention. It could be that way, right? Like,
yeah, definitely could. And if he went home and wrote in his diary, today I tapped Dan Robin and I'm so happy, it still doesn't really matter, right? Yeah. I find that stuff fascinating. So to me, that's the one of the great things about jiu-jitsu is just being able to go into this and kind of
right. And that's the broader, there's the minor jiu-jitsu-y point, which is you have to not worry about the two, just to so you can put yourself in bad positions and not worry about, if you're so terrorized of feeling bad after a roll, you don't want to, maybe you never ever let someone get past your guard, or you never try, you're like, I'm never going to even I'm never going to use my guard because my guard's bad, or, something like that. You don't learn any of that as the
Well, I think that's the beauty of really overemphasizing learning in the dojo, in the academy, is then you can get a little distance from this other stuff, this status hierarchy and esteem loss. I can get away from that if it's about learning. And So I use a lot of little strategies like that. Try to emphasize the learning, do some positional training, so then I don't feel the status loss as much if somebody gets over on me.
Right. And then if you are feeling that statusy kind of anxiety, steer into it.
Yeah, because I don't want that affecting my life, right? No good can come from that, having that influence my life. Although it is pushing on me, and pushing on all of us, right? Constantly. But it's coming from that animal nature that just wants to compete and rise up in the status hierarchy, and not always for the good, though. Usually not, I don't think. So that's what I love about jiu-jitsu. The other thing I love about it is it's intentional conflict. You know what I mean? Like, we're rolling with each other. We're trying to strangle each other. And we have to do it in a way that we don't create enemies of each other. And that's sophisticated, isn't it?
Yeah. Do you think it's fundamentally different for stand-up and striking? I feel it's pretty similar, actually.
It's probably similar. I think the only difference, or one of the main differences might be, is that you can get so many more rounds in of jiu-jitsu sparring. I think you can do way more of that. I can go twice a day. I could do 10 rounds, 10 5-minute rounds of jiu-jitsu sparring almost every day probably, right? Or something like that. I could do 10 one day, 5 another. I could get a lot of rounds in, right? So how many is that? Yeah, I could do 40 rounds of sparring a week, let's say, in jiu-jitsu. I don't think you could do that in boxing and kickboxing.
Is that
right?
the wear and tear, you mean?
Yeah, and the brain damage and everything else. But, yeah. But there's totally similar dynamics going on. You see it sometimes. You see it when a better striker is kind of working around with somebody, and they're going at a moderate pace, and then the lesser skilled fighter lands a significant blow. And then usually the better fighter goes, well, okay, and then he just lowers the boom on the guy and just drops him with something.
Yeah. And I think that all this is important, especially now. I think we're in, tell me if you agree with this, I think we're in an era now compared to, say our parents' generation. Mm-hmm. We're in an era of like criticizing everything in our lives, including ourselves, way, way more than they did. I feel like they sort of just live their lives, and I'll give you an example in a second. Yeah. They live their lives sort of much more straightforward. So I saw this thing it's like one of these memes making the rounds on Facebook, and it was like, it was showing the proper ways to sleep, right? It was like, if on your back, you should have something under your back so that your spine is straight. And it's like, if you don't, look, your spine is all curved. If you're on your side, your spine's all screwed up unless you put a pillow here. If you're on your stomach, you need to put pillows here and here, or it messes up your neck and your back. And it was just a joke because it said, like, underneath it was like, I thought I at least knew how to sleep correctly, but it turns out I'm doing that all wrong too. But I thought about it, and it was like, I feel like the times we're in where it was like, you're not sleeping correctly, right? And it's like, if you start thinking about it, it's like, you're also not eating correctly, right? Like, you're not, these carbs are wrong, that sugar's wrong, your diet's wrong. We've heard it our whole lives, and then it changes again and goes, that's wrong. And it's like, you're working out wrong, right? Like, that's why that's why where CrossFit came from, and now everyone's saying CrossFit's wrong. It's just, and it's like, you're doing everything wrong. And then jiu-jitsu, right? It's always like, we've been training people wrong, and it's changing. And you go, what about stand-up? We're doing it wrong. It's been too much head trauma. Like, and it's a constant drumbeat of like, you're doing everything wrong, eating, working out, sleeping, how much rearing your kids, right? We've all done it wrong. It's always saying, this is what you're doing wrong.
That's a big one, I think.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's like, training your pets, wrong. Like, everything's wrong. And then for me, maybe I'm going too far afield, but I'm like, every major sport, they're like, we need better. We need more cameras. We need more replay. Like, you're calling it wrong. You can, like, and it's this hyper nonstop critical mindset that I don't think they had. And like, if you go, I don't know where you want to go to, the 70s, but it's like, I think they just lived their lives, and they're like, we're all raising kids, we're all eating our meals, we're all going to sleep, we're all going to our work. And it was sort of,
I hear what you're saying. I think it's based on a couple things. One is, you know, as humans, we do want to push technology forward. We do want to optimize. We're always looking to do things better. We want faster cars, faster planes. You know, we want everything better. So I think that's in our nature. And yeah, we want to
extending it to parenting and
right. And then I think there's another sort of human nature thing at play here where people, you know, they like to should other people. So that's probably a status thing where if I could point out how you're parenting incorrectly, I could knock you down a peg and be above you. So it's probably a combination of, you know, we like to compete with each other, and we like to push technology forward, and you get a chance to knock somebody down.
I feel it's like it's going up exponentially, like right now.
Might
like
be.
I don't think over every, you know, if you go back 1,000 years, it's always.
I think
been
you're
going
right.
up.
Well,
like,
we have so many, our communication systems
right.
are unprecedented. So, yeah, you can get on Facebook and YouTube, everywhere else, and just Twitter and tell everybody what they're doing wrong.
Yeah, and I think maybe it slowly builds up, and we're all walking around with a subconscious pressure, like I'm doing everything wrong.
Everything wrong.
Or like I need to do things better.
64% on my sleep.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you're measuring your sleep, and you're like it's wrong, and then your heart rate variability is wrong.
I had terrible heart rate variability today. I should be ashamed of myself. Yeah.
This is what I'm saying. And I think it builds up on people, and I think one thing is to be aware of it, right? To just be aware, like, man, I'm always beating myself up about.
I think you're right. Like, I haven't been eating well the last couple of days, and then I'm feeling guilty about it and bad about it. And one of the dangers is, you know, you have that syndrome where you say, screw it.
Yeah.
And then you just go off the deep end and eat terribly or whatever the thing is you're trying to do.
Right.
Where if I was a little less critical of myself, I might be able to say, yeah, you let your hair down for a few days. Just let's get back on course. No big deal.
And then don't we all have like that goofy friend who you're like a little jealous of? You're like, he's not worried about anything. Like he's just like, you know, thinking about any
of this. A lot
of
friends like that.
Yeah. It's like, he's not thinking about any of this. Like, so yeah, it's a constant stress. But then the other side that I just, not to keep putting additions onto this, but like, I also disagree. I know there's a common thing of people, you know, if they think my take home message is like, don't beat yourself up. The one problem with that is I hear that a lot too. Like, don't beat yourself up. And it's always, not always, it's often the people that should be beating themselves up that are being told that. Like, don't beat yourself up. I mean, you just were abusive to your children. Like, you know, it's sort of like, no, that you're the person who should be beating yourself up. Like,
definitely.
So I feel like it's a good message to come across, to think about this hyper criticism and don't walk around feeling like you're beating yourself up, but it should be applied to the right people and at the right times.
People.
Like, there are times
Definitely.
you should definitely beat yourself up, like when you screw things up.
I totally agree. And the parenting thing, so now my children are adults, and I'm starting to wonder if once a parent rises above the level of not being abusive, they've maximized their parental effect.
That's all you have to do?
I think that's all you can do. I think when you put in extra energy, it's completely wasted. Like, the diminishing returns kick in very quickly.
So if you're not harming them,
you're probably maxed out. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Just don't harm them, and you're good.
I think so. Yeah.
It could be. And that fits in with what you're saying, like everything, you know, it's like, what, you're doing this wrong, you're doing it wrong, you're doing it wrong. Yeah.
I mean, how many families have you seen where the outcomes of the siblings vary wildly?
A ton. All of them.
All of them. Right. All got the same parenting, more or less. You know, I'm sure people would spin it, well, you know, he was the middle child and blah, blah. You know, they have these cockamamie theories that probably aren't true. But all right, Dan, I think we should probably wrap this up. So we talked about sleep, the Oura Ring. Oh, we talked about, here's what it was.
I think it's all of one.
It's all of one piece. We talked about objective feedback, and then we talked about in jiu-jitsu, what's maddening is the lack of objective feedback. It's completely subjective. And from our experience, most people have a negative bias on how well they're doing. So we can tell all our jiu-jitsu listeners out there, you're probably doing better than you think you're doing. You think that's fair to say?
I think it's fair.
Yeah. And then we're
and I should quickly say we're also not like rah-rah cheerleaders. Like, I think that's actually accurate. We're not here to just try to make people feel happy. I think it's actually. I think if everyone was too positive out there, we'd say it.
Definitely, right. Like as you said, there are some individuals out there that should be beating themselves up more.
Right.
Definitely. Then we talked about the influence of losing status and how it can make some of us suffer, and it's ultimately of not any real consequence. So we should just move into that discomfort,
right? And the value of steering into discomfort, and how you're more likely to do it if you're taking care of yourself and
that's it,
working on yourself.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for another brilliant podcast, Dan. And we got so many more super fans. So Chris Ramos is commenting like a madman on all our YouTube videos. Thank you, Chris. That's terrific.
Thanks, Chris.
I got shirts out to a bunch of people. Matt McCarthy is now officially a super fan.
Thanks, Matt.
T-shirt.
And they're getting T-shirts, all these people.
They are.
Are there more T-shirts, or are we out?
I still have some T-shirts. I have smalls, I think, and larges. I think I got 1, 2X.
So all you medium people out there.
You medium people screwed.
You're out of luck.
Yeah. Lovely Lucy Robin got the last medium T-shirt. I got to get a shirt out to Mike Gould. He's a super fan as well, I think. Yeah, we should catalog the super fans. Talk about it next week.
Sounds good.
Awesome. All right. So please rate, review, share. Tell all your friends to listen to this. If they have any interest in jiu-jitsu, martial arts, fighting, or just human nature, check it out, and we'll see you next week. Take care.